Hi there, and welcome to this week's edition of ReFLEXions. For regular viewers, you'll know that this isn't my dingy, tiny front room or my staircase. It's actually the BT Tower, so not that much different. Salubrious environment. You can see out, hopefully, some of the London skyline behind me. But we're here for the Ultimate Boxer 3 press conference. But while we're here, we thought we'd film ReFLEXions because it comes out every Monday. Today's Monday, if you didn't know, 4:30 p.m. Where we wrap up the action from the weekend just gone. And what a lot of action there was, particularly in the US. We'll get onto the Matchroom show in a minute, but the big fight from the weekend was, of course, in Texas, as home state hero Errol Spence drew something like over 40,000 fans to the AT&T Stadium, where he delivered the best performance, I would say, of his career so far. Some may say Kell Brook, given the quality of opposition, but it was and the size of the opposition, I should point out. But Mikey Garcia came in. Some people were tipping him despite the weight disadvantage, size disadvantage. He was a 4-weight world champion, and Spence completely dominated him from first bell to last. He was excellent, and although size did play a part, as a lot of people said it would, it was more to do with the range and distance of the punches that Spence used, rather than him out-muscling Mikey or overpowering him. It was especially noticeable right from the start. Spence was banging out his jab in singles and doubles, and every time Garcia attempted to counter or to step inside with his neat footwork, Spence was able to move to the side, take a step back, and land his own counters, because he did have that extra length who misses. He was very good. He was poised throughout. His corner would continually tell him not to get too reckless, not take any unnecessary risks, which he didn't, but he did steadily pile the pressure on, and in the second half of the fight, it started to seem like Garcia might get pulled out by his corner or stopped by the referee. Those fears were only really assuaged by the end of the 11th round, when we thought he'd have enough nous and enough savvy to get through the last round, which he did. He said afterwards he's very unlikely to stay at welterweight. Considering how he looked on the scales and how he was dominated in the fight, I don't blame him. Although I think even if the fight were at a lower weight, Spence wouldn't have made it, so it's irrelevant. But even if it were, I think the better boxer won on the night. I don't think it was just about size. I think Spence was good throughout. His hand speed was on point. His footwork was good. His angles were great, and his body punching was used more sparingly than other fights, but it was still very accurate. And I suppose his work rate, we can't say enough about that, because he landed about 5 times as many punches as Garcia and threw a lot more as well. He kept it going from first bell to last, so he's obviously very well conditioned, as well as diverse skill set that he possesses. Also on that show, we of course saw Chris Arreola get a nice win heavyweight. That was a decent enough fight to watch. Charles Martin, who you know from losing his IBF title to AJ, he won a disqualification on the show. Not too bad. The show had a lot of short fights before the main event, which was good for people who were staying up. I watched it the next day, having recorded it anyway. I've got too young a kid, my son, so I couldn't really. I was no way going to stay up until that time of night and have to get up with him at 6:30 in the morning. No, thank you. But I watched it the next day when he thankfully had a nap, and then watched the undercard when he went to sleep in the evening. Tough job, but someone's got to do it. Yes, I did just describe boxing and looking after my own son as a tough job. Moving on, the Matchroom show in Philadelphia had its own fair share of entertainment. We saw John O'Carroll put in a brave but ultimately fruitless performance against champion Tevin Farmer at super featherweight. Carroll was always a big underdog coming into the fight, as he did offer what many people considered a fortuitous draw against Guillaume Fremoir in the eliminator for the title. He still got the title shot first before Fremoir, and gave a really brave showing, but was ultimately outclassed by Farmer, who repeated again after the fight that he wants to fight with Gervonta Tank Davis. Not sure if it's going to happen anytime soon, but we'd very much like to see it. Similar to how we'd like to see Spence fight Terence Crawford, but broadcasting and promotional problems make that unlikely for 2019, it's fair to say. But just going back to Spence for a minute, it looks like he might fight Manny Pacquiao next. I don't think anyone really wants to see that. Pacquiao, while he's still able to compete at a relatively high level, I think Spence is all wrong for him. Fellow southpaw with a high work rate, aggressive, hard puncher. Manny doesn't be needing that at this time of night, and yes, I did say doesn't be needed, I'm not sure why. But going back to the Matchroom show, we saw Katie Taylor unify 3 parts of the Big 4 world titles. She beat Rose Valente, stopped her, looked really good doing so. Now it remains to be seen if she can get WBC champion Delphine Persoon, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, in the ring before the end of the year. So she's got all 4 major belts, so we look forward to that. A lot of good fights on the show. And then last night we had St. Patrick's Day show in the US. Michael Conlon got yet another victory under his belt. Him fighting in New York on St. Patrick's Day has become a bit of a theme. But unfortunately for Paddy Barnes, he couldn't do the same. He was dropped and ultimately outpointed. I think it was either a split or a majority decision against an unheralded opponent. He's now thought to be considering his future. He's given us plenty of entertainment, not least as an amateur and also as a pro. He's a really nice guy too, so whatever he decides to do, we wish him the very best of luck. Now we want you guys to engage with us, of course. Not about my viewing habits or the backdrop. I'm sure there won't be as many comments about that as there normally are this week. But what I'd like to hear from you is who you'd like to see Errol Spence fight next in an ideal world. I'm sure a lot of you will say Crawford. But if it can't be Crawford, who's the second best opponent for him? Who can give him a test outside of Crawford at welterweight? Because we don't think he's moving up, at least not yet. Also, who do you think put in the performance of the weekend? Was it Spence? Or are you one of those people that thinks because Garcia was so much naturally smaller, maybe someone else deserves the nod? Maybe Katie Taylor, for example. Let us know what you think and why. We'd love to see you back here next Monday, 4:30 p.m, and we'll be here with ReFLEXions, our preview show, Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Thanks very much.